Yo, hello everybody. Oh my gosh, and now it's capturing the wrong window. That's great. Is it? Actually, maybe it's not. And you just can't ask for any more, can you? You just can't ask for any more. I'll get rid of that. Alright, everybody. What's up? How's it all going? I am silentkaster. Here today. Sorry about last night, or last week, everybody. Just was not feeling good. Had just come home, and I think I ate something pretty bad, so feeling much better today. And so I know I missed a lot of stories and missed a lot of stuff, so hopefully we got, hopefully we'll get it all done today. Get some other stuff. Also pondering in July, starting like some midweek streams and trying to get some content. I'm thinking of maybe midweek streams having guests and whatnot. And so seeing what we can do to incorporate that. Also maybe doing some like poker stuff. I don't know yet. I was browsing poker today, and oh my gosh, like, it took me probably, and you gotta remember, like, with poker on Twitch anyway, like, you get, most people understandably have a delay on their stream, right? And so, you have a 10-minute delay or whatever, and that's okay. Like, or not 10 minute, I'm sorry, like a minute and a half delay, and that's completely fine. But like, I was looking at just some of the smaller poker streamers just to kind of try to reach out or whatever, and like chat in their stream, and I went through like 6 before I found someone that would actually respond. It was like pretty crazy. So I'm like, man, there's really a gap for poker streamers, because there's just some bad ones, and I don't mind saying that some people suck at streaming, and I'm not here to pad you and say you can do it. You're just so good. You just need a break. You just need one of those ninja raids. You just need, something to happen for you. Like, no. There's just some people that suck, plain and simple. Like, they, and it's not anything against them. They're just not good at streaming. They're not entertaining. There are some people I know that, they get some pity views and whatnot, and that's whatever, but it's not for everybody. What's up, Infamous and Nightcast Mog? Hope you're all doing well. Thanks for coming today, guys. I appreciate it. All right. Well, we've got some stuff on the agenda. Obviously, I missed kind of last week our favorite former president, and his indictment circus that's going on. We'll talk about that a little bit. Yeah, but let's talk about it a little bit and get right into it. So, first, we've got this news story from the Associated Press. And so, for those of you that may not know a lot about the whole Trump indictment thing, basically, there was some documents, like top secret documents or whatever, that he was keeping from, he removed when he left office, and, has been kind of sitting on him in Mar-a-Lago. And, they've wanted, I guess, they've been requesting them back, and they did a raid trying to get the documents back and all this. And again, I've talked about this a lot, is, it's secret documents, hidden from the public, which to me has always been a problem at all. Like, you don't know what you can vote for unless somebody's being completely honest with you, and so unfortunately there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know, that we have to kind of, vote in good faith on, especially when it comes to politics, because if you don't know what you don't know, right? And so, how can a, they always say, oh, democracy, which we'll get to, but, democracy work if you don't know what you're voting for, if you don't know all the information that you have. To me, it's just always ridiculous that we have any secret information, let alone, whatever they are with Trump. But let's kind of just get into this. So the AP says, as Donald Trump became the first former president to face federal charges, he and his supporters went through a familiar routine of mounting a victimhood defense in the face of unprecedented allegations of wrongdoing, but this time the stakes are higher. Trump upped the level of his claims and threats as he faces the potential of years in prison if convicted on 37 charges of obstruction, illegal retention of defense information, and other violations. Hours after pleading not guilty, Trump claimed he is being targeted by the special prosecutor, who is nonpartisan, for political reasons, and vowed to retaliate against President Joe Biden if he is elected in 2024. So, we always have these things. Like, we always have these, editorializations, especially when it comes from the AP, especially when it comes, from, it's always about Trump and, just, victimhood narrative. Like, they play that themselves anytime they talk about, anything else. They're okay to play the victim, but they just, they can't give, the what we'll call the charitable interpretation of news to Trump, because it's always Trump. So there was an unwritten rule to not prosecute former presidents and political rivals. Trump told supporters on a speech at his golf club in New Jersey, "I will appoint a real special prosecutor to go after the most corrupt president in the history of America, Joe Biden, go after the Biden crime family." So let's talk about this a little bit. So I don't know what context, I haven't watched that whole speech, obviously. And I don't know exactly, I'm sure there's some kind of a context that he wrote it in, but taking it at face value. First of all, I really don't care what's unprecedented or not. Like, if something has to happen, it has to happen, right? And this goes for Trump and everybody else. And so one of the biggest defenses that they constantly use, especially, for people on the right, is, oh, it's so unprecedented. This has never happened. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't care. I don't care if something has never happened. That doesn't make it okay to happen, right? Like, it doesn't mean that it can't happen. Oh, we've never, gone after a former president. Okay, well, what do you, the media has always hated Trump, right? The media just hates Trump. They don't like his bombasticness. They didn't like his mean tweets. They didn't, and this goes for, all of the corporate media, pretty much, including, Fox News, which was, always supposed to be on his side. Well, how many times did he attack them? On top of how many times has he attacked, say, his own allies? I mean, we just talked about it a couple weeks ago, like Kayleigh McEnany. He attacked her because she mentioned, and yeah, she's part of Fox News now, but she was, his press secretary that, defended him constantly. And I think she said something like, oh, he's 31 points ahead instead of, 40 or something. I don't know, something like that. Saying something about that, didn't even matter. He's far ahead of Ron DeSantis no matter what. I think it was 26-31, actually. She said 26 and it was supposed to be 31, and he attacked her for that and called her, wishy-washy or something. I don't even remember. He made some kind of nickname. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with this. You can't do that and expect to have allies left in the room. I mean, yeah, he's got a lot of fans still. A lot of people love him. But, it helps to have people on your side that are in power as well. Or at least have, prominence, right? And so, I really don't care that there's this unwritten rule to not prosecute former presidents. It's well, you know why they didn't write it down? Because it wasn't a rule. That's why they didn't do it. That's why they didn't write it down. And so I really don't care that, being unprecedented, never having been done, that's not a defense. If anybody tells you that, just tell them it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it's a ridiculous defense. It has no place as, it has no place in public discourse, is what I'm trying to say. Secondly, I will appoint a real special prosecutor, go after the most corrupt president in the history of America, Joe Biden, and go after the Biden crime family. Do you remember when he was supposed to... Who was he supposed to send a special prosecutor? I used to have a soundbite in my stream, actually. Man, who was it? Oh, yeah, that's right. Hillary Clinton. What happened to that, folks? What happened? He didn't go after that. He never went after her. So, first of all, why would I believe you this time? Secondly, why are you going to waste my tax? I mean, I know it's like, okay, a special prosecutor and team, compared to the billions and trillions of dollars the government spends, like, is not very much. It's a drop in the bucket relative to all that. Like, it wouldn't cost that much, but still, like, why are you going to spend any money on this? Like, what do you think Joe Biden is just gonna lay down and take it? Like, do you think he's just gonna, like, not defend himself? Like, let's just say everything goes Trump's way. He wins the election in a landslide, or, wins the primary, then wins the election in a landslide, and, just Biden is escorted out of the office in shame. What do you think is going to happen? Like, do you think Biden's just going to, like, disappear? Like, and just be like, okay, Trump got me. And, like, all his media allies are not going to do anything? Like, no. So you're going to spend, months and years, like, I'm just taking this at face value. I'm just assuming that he's correct and he's going to do this. For what? For us to hear more about Hunter Biden's laptop for a president that's no longer in office? Like, it just... Again, this is why I will not vote for Trump in the primary. Because he just can't get away from the traps that are being laid for him. Like, this just looks so bad. And you have to remember, like, Biden's approval is low. Like, it's really low, right? And, like, even his own party doesn't want him to run, and yet... What? Who's mounting, like, the biggest... the biggest offense to him? It doesn't matter. Like, it's just getting so ridiculous that, like, when voters turn and look, and we're talking about the polls in a little bit, but when voters turn and look for a alternative, and they just don't see anything, they're going to vote for Biden, okay? When they just see crazy, they're going to vote for Biden. They're just like, I'm not, I mean, I can't bring, like, I did not like Trump's last year in office, but I reluctantly pulled the lever for him, in essence, which, I guess, hang on one second, guys, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry about that. I reluctantly pulled the lever for him in 2020, which I guess is not really a lever. You just kind of, like, use a pen and everything. But I really don't want to in 2024. Like, it's like, okay, I don't think I will, actually. I'm just kind of like, I'm tired of hearing about the 2020 election. I'm tired of, just hearing about Truth Social and how you want to build that, and all it is self-serving, and I'm just like, I do have some Trump fatigue, I will say. And if you're asking me, if I'd rather have Joe Biden, I'm just kind of like, I don't really have a preference at this point. Like, you have to present me an alternative that I feel strongly enough about to vote in the other direction, right? And I don't. Like, Biden is just kind of like Stewart, just kind of like Pokey Oaks. He's not really making the decisions anyway. But if what you're going to focus on is 2020 election, appointing special prosecutors to investigate Joe Biden, I'm not really hearing enough platform from him. I'm just hearing why his opponents suck. And so, I need to hear more platform from him, and not via Twitter. I actually was calling Ed out yesterday because he was like, I'm going to post this question on Twitter. And I'm like, okay, so you're just going to eliminate critical thought then? He's like, well, I think it is critical thought when I ask people the question and just kind of leave it open-ended. It's like, nope, actually, Twitter is evil, and it does not promote critical thought. It is entirely the opposite. So, anyway, let's continue with the article. The vow is reminiscent of the lock her up chants against Democrat Hillary Clinton that Trump led during his 2016 campaign, but the new level of specificity alarmed many experts. If he did that, it'd be an authoritarian system, the end of a system of laws rather than of one man, said Lindsay Chervinsky, a presidential historian. Okay. Again, I don't really see how. I agree that it would be stupid, but pointing, an authoritarian system, no, not really, not at all. Even as he pledges to retaliate if elected, Trump and his supporters claim he is being targeted in a way that is similar to authoritarian regimes, such as in Russia, where opponents of President Vladimir Putin have been jailed, or Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro's chief rival was prosecuted. There is no evidence that Biden made the sort of pledge to target Trump that the former president has now made, and the president said he has never tried to influence the Justice Department in any case. Sure. But you're kind of the head honcho, you're their boss, so a little bit different. Again, they are not a fan of Trump anyway. There was a very different feel, for the classified documents than they have with the other people, Mike Pence and Joe Biden himself and all that, very, very different, gloves that they were using to handle that, we'll say. Trump's attacks on the justice system are the latest step in a now 8-year campaign by the former president and his allies against the traditions and institutions that have helped maintain American democracy. Again, democracy is very overrated. They always talk about democracy. They just kind of throw that word around and they just say, oh, you should support democracy, because if you don't support democracy, you're going to be in a totalitarian environment where just, people make decisions based on birthright, or they make decisions based on appointees, or they make decisions based, and so, democracy gives you control. It gives people that are over the age of 18 control. Meaning that the person that is outraged, the person that is outraged on, say, and has the pink hair and the, all the flags hanging from them, that's the person that has just as much power as you do. And, the uninformed voter that just, happened to flip on the last news report that said, Trump bad or Biden bad or whatever, they have just as much power as you do. So, the fact that they always try to promote democracy as this, like, fair and ethical, rule is not true. They just throw that word out because it's, it happens to poll well in, focus groups. Hey, what's up, Kami? Anyway. So they kind of go on and they talk about Trump and they talk about, that he's perfectly willing to misuse and abuse his office. Okay, the AP obviously doesn't like him. They're just gonna go on and interview people that are, pretty favorable to Trump, or I'm sorry, pretty favorable against Trump, I should say. So again, not interested in this story. Like, again, I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of the charges. I think it's kind of ridiculous. I don't think that the government should really have top secret information anyway. Because then, they always talk about democracy, but how do you vote for, like, 20, about 20% of what a candidate says. And you don't even know, like, especially, like, new candidates, they don't even know if they have the power to do the promises that they're talking about, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So all this top secret information plays into their decision making. So, since we don't know that, and we can't know that, yeah. But I want to talk about the polls a little bit. So we're going to go to the Real Clear Politics here, and we're just going to see how far Trump is ahead of DeSantis. And, we've got the latest poll, which came out yesterday. Trump at 59, DeSantis at 14, and then all the others, in the single digits. Biden about the same over Kennedy. And, Harvard-Harris is kind of a favorable poll to Trump. And it's showing Biden's approval, Biden's approval at 43. Again, this one, Harris X, Trump 53, DeSantis 17, and then everybody else kind of trailing. And yet, with Biden's approval so low, at 40%, 43%, 43%, 37%, like all of these approvals are so low, and yet, we've got DeSantis beating Biden by 1, and then Trump tied, I get it, like, polls are obviously not completely reliable. I get it, like, but the thing is that we have to talk about this a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Because these polls are basically polling the same people, and so the polls go and say, when a poll is saying, for instance, that Biden is 10 points underwater, but yet the contenders, are only, 6 and 7 points ahead in this. And like I said, Harvard-Harris is a favorable poll. And then we've got, down here, like most of the polls show them kind of dead heat even, right? Dead heat even. What people are doing is they're looking at the Republican Party in general. And they're just saying, that is not an alternative that I want. And I can't blame them, especially when you've got the leading contender that just continues to talk about the past and isn't really putting out a lot of platform issues, at least not on a level where you can actually, interact with that, right? Where you can see, him putting out these, platforms and running on something. Trump tends to just attack rather than, go after, talk about the policies he's putting forth. I mean, I really don't care if he's going to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Biden. Again, if anything, I'm just like, you're wasting time and resources on that when, I want... There are many other policy platforms that I would like to actually hear about. What's going to affect my future? Again, we talked about this, like the January 6th riots, for instance. Like, we talked about this and I said, what was it? Like, I think it was in the 70s when we saw the poll. Like, people don't care about that. That is so far down. And yet for like 2 years, all the media could talk about was January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. That's all they did was harp on January 6th, January 6th. That's all they do. That's all they did. And yet, you're not thinking about that when you were looking at inflation, when you were hearing about, if you happen to have someone related to you that was in the military that, was being deployed a certain place, you didn't hear about that when there were these shortages that, were... January 6th didn't affect you when you had these, like, chip shortages, for instance, and you wanted to build a computer. January 6th didn't play a factor in that. And yet, that's all they talked about. Right? And so, I am to the point where I'm just like, I'm certainly not voting for Biden, unless some very strange permutations play out. But, I'm also not of the opinion where I would go and vote for Trump. I'm not really wanting to vote for Trump. I'm not really wanting to vote for DeSantis because I think he's just been terrible at strategy. And, I voted for him in Florida, for the governorship, but I'm not thrilled to vote for him, the general. I really want Ramaswamy to win, but I think he has no chance. Just don't die. You won't. Yeah. So that's what I think is happening, is people are looking at Biden, they're like, I don't really like him, but am I going to vote for those people when they look at Republicans? And I don't think they're saying yes. I don't think they're saying yes. So, all right. Now we're gonna talk about. We've got a lot of like pride stories that we're gonna kind of go through, and we're gonna talk about this. So I was reading them. Nick Merck's pride controversy explained. What did he say, and why did Call of Duty remove his skin? That sounds so horrible, doesn't it? Like, remove his skin, like, I know what they mean. They mean, like, his, costume or whatever for, in-game. But, like, removing his skin just sounds, like, so grotesque, doesn't it? Okay. Alright, so I don't know this person. This is, reading this story is, like, the first introduction I've had to him. But we're going to read this story. A storm has brewed up regarding Nick Merckx after a short tweet he posted in response to a Pride Month protest. The fallout has resulted in both backlash and support for the streamer, and eventually Call of Duty removed his skin from the game. Nick Merckx is one of the most popular streamers on Twitch, regularly pulling more than 20,000 viewers on any given stream. He is best known for playing shooter games and battle royales like Call of Duty and Apex Legends. A skilled player and an excellent entertainer, he has amassed a large following with millions of loyal fans dubbed MFam, Merckx Fam. It's fair to say that he has never been a particularly controversial streamer, but this changed on June 7th when he made a short but notable tweet, because we all know that Twitter is amazing and what people should be using to make informed decisions on elections. Twitter definitely, as Ed said, he really provokes controversial thought, because you get to do things like ask questions like, what was the question he wanted to ask? Where's the invoice? Brilliant! Brilliant! How did you think of writing that question rather than talking about, and then it's funny, like Ed and I are good, but we have a very different opinion on Twitter. And what he says is that somehow provokes critical thought, is to ask that question on Twitter. And then I said, well, why not explain then where the invoice is? And his response was, oh, I just did on my show. And I'm like, okay, but do you think the people that you want to make the point to are watching your show? No, they're not. They're just going to post a funny meme and think and do a gotcha thing. But anyway, all right, I'm going to get off of that. A skilled player, did I say this already? Yeah, I did. Okay. Responding to a tweet about Pride Month being recognized in a school, which had resulted in a brawl and 3 arrests, Nick Merckx said, they should leave the little kids out of it. That's the real issue. The backlash to this comment was swift, with many in the gaming community calling him a bigot and labeling the tweet anti-LGBTQRIA, LMNOP, ZYX, ABC, 123, Windows key, Shift key, caps lock, enter, Alt, Control, Delete, plus sign, minus sign, turn off your speaker key, fast forward key, F5, F6, ampersand. Did I get them all? I'm not sure. I think I got them all. Their argument is that pride is important in schools and that Nick Merckx was parroting dangerous rhetoric that implies teaching children about sexuality is akin to grooming. Yeah. I'm not implying it. Let me say that. I'm doing a little bit more than that. However, many others took Nick Merckx's side of the debate, citing that he has just had a child and arguing that it is for parents to choose how and when to have those conversations with children rather than teachers. On his stream the next day, Nick took a few minutes at the outset to address his tweet. He said that he had not intended to hurt anyone, but recognized that he had. However, he stopped short of apologizing for the tweet and said he stood by what he said. I don't have any quarrel with people on the internet. It was an gay tweet. That wasn't what it was. If you think that I hate you because you're a certain way, you couldn't be any more wrong. Yeah. Oh, have a good night, Kami. Nick did apologize to esports caster Puckett, however. Puckett's tweet is what he had initially replied to, and Nick felt bad for causing chaos in his replies and having those who took Nick's side insult him. A matter of hours after Nick's response to the controversy, players noticed that his operator bundle was no longer available in Call of Duty in either Warzone 2 or Modern Warfare 2. Activision soon confirmed that they had removed the skin due to recent events. We are focused on celebrating pride, capital letters, with our employees and our community, they concluded. Players who already own the skin can, at least for the time of writing, still use it in-game. In response, some Call of Duty's players suggested they would uninstall the game or simply stop playing it in protest of Activision's decision. Others, though, applauded Activision for taking action in the face of backlash. Okay. So... first of all, I like that this guy didn't apologize, because when you apologize to these people, they just... It's never enough, I'll say, right? It's never enough that you apologize, first of all. Secondly, you just shouldn't apologize, right? Like, mean what you say and stand by it. And I think they said down here that there was another Tim the Tatman, which I've heard of, but I don't know who he is either, made a public statement asking Call of Duty to also remove his operator bundle in support of his friend. So basically, the thing about this is, we're going to try to kind of get into the Pride festivities, but this is the first story that we have on this. And then we have school district restricts Bible after complaint calls it sex-ridden. A suburban school district in Utah has banned the Bible in elementary and middle schools after a parent frustrated by efforts to ban materials from schools argued that some Bible verses were too vulgar or violent for younger children, and the Book of Mormon could be next. The 72,000 student Davis School District north of Salt Lake City removed a Bible from its elementary and middle schools while keeping it in high schools after a committee reviewed the scriptures in response to a parental complaint. The district has removed other titles, including Sherman Alexie's The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian and John Green's Looking for Alaska, following a 2022 state law requiring districts to include parents in decisions over what constitutes sensitive material. CBS affiliate KUTV reports that the District Review Committee found that while the Bible does not contain sensitive materials defined by state law, it includes elements of vulgarity or violence that are not suitable for younger students. On Friday, a complaint was submitted about the signature scripture of the predominant faith in Utah, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, widely known as the Mormon Church. District spokesperson Chris Williams confirmed that someone filed a review request for the Book of Mormon but would not say what reasons were listed. Citing a school board privacy policy, he also would not say whether it was from the same person who complained about the Bible. Representatives for the church declined to comment on the challenge. Members of the faith also read the Bible. Okay. So we're going to go on and talk about that. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? This is a religious text, obviously, the Bible. Having read it, and having read, a lot of it multiple times, there are definitely some scary things in the Bible. Maybe that somebody under a certain view could reasonably argue is probably not, for kids, right? There's a lot of, there's a children's Bible, for instance, that kind of contextualizes a lot about what's in the Bible. And so, we know why they're doing it. The Bible has been around for thousands and thousands of years, okay? The Bible has been around for a very long time. They're doing it because they want to reverse the law, which, again, is a very big criticism I always have, of Republicans. They want to reverse the law, or they want to make laws which can eventually be used against them, rather than, use culture as a driving force, to change and make progress in certain areas that they would like to, make progress in. They want to instead, do this kind of thing, which, okay, I get it, I guess. But we know why this happened. The Bible's been around for a long time. It's not like these scriptures have, changed in any way. And they want to, ban it because they're saying, it's one of the, it's one of the books that have adult themes in it, right? At the same time, there is an argument that says, a lot of the material is adult themed and should probably be, kept from kids. But then, again, it's kind of the battle here. One thing is that it is a religious text rather than a just a text, like a kid's book text or anything like that. Like, how do you, I guess, is the Bible allowed at all? If you're a kid that is good with is strong in your faith, are you allowed to for instance bring the Bible to school at all? Are you allowed to cite the Bible as a reference for like a paper or a reference for no matter what you're doing a topic on? Are you allowed to cite the Bible as a reference in a speech you're doing, for instance? These are all questions that again, the law doesn't address. And because we use the law, or because Republicans, I should say, use the law instead of using culture to, shift things around, this is why they get what they get. They get, the responses of, banning the Bible from, school, along with a bunch of other books that they could ban. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean, Bob. We'll talk about this, and then we're going to kind of just go over... I think there's one more thing. Yeah, there's one more, and then we'll go over everything. Washington Korean spa ordered to drop biological women only policy after trans complaint. In Washington State, a Korean spa in Washington State that requires nudity in some areas was forced to wipe its biological women only policy by a Seattle court earlier this week. What started it? Olympus Spa, which has branches in Linwood and Tacoma, was hit with a discrimination complaint by transgender woman customer Haven Wilvich after the business refused her membership application in January 2020. The basis for this denial was that she has not undergone gender reassignment surgery. Wilvich submitted her complaint in May 2020 to the Washington State Human Rights Commission, which then served Olympus with a notice of complaint of discrimination in March of 2021. The spa, which features the experience of Korea's traditional sex-segregated bathhouses called, I don't even know that word, responded by maintaining its women-only policy. In a statement, owner Myun Woon Lee, and President Soon Lee said they are unwilling to remake that we have worked so hard over many years to build and preserve, simply for the sake of promoting gender neutrality. They also cited their Christian faith in their decision to keep the policy. WSHRC ultimately ruled that Olympus had discriminated against Wilvich in a pre-filing settlement agreement to avoid prosecution. The commission ordered the spa to remove the term biological women from its website. The business was also forced to make staff members attend an inclusivity training. However, in March 2022, the spa sued Andretta Armstrong, the commission's executive director, alleging violations against their First Amendment rights to free exercise of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of association. Seattle District Court Judge Barbara Jacobs Rothstein rejected Olympus' suit on Monday, upholding the WSHRC's ruling that the spa had committed discrimination. Rothstein noted how the WSHRC defines sexual orientation as including those whose gender identity, self-image, appearance, behavior, or expression is different from that traditionally associated with the sex assigned to that person at birth. She gave the business 30 days to amend their complaint and refile. Yeah. So, telling you. Telling you. These stories are going to keep happening. Stories are going to keep happening, folks. You know, in Canada, they're talking about, you know, there's a lot of, like, these mandatory pride celebrations during school that you just can't get out of, right? They're adding it to the curriculum. Telling you, folks, it's going to keep happening. You know, a business is demanded, basically, to accept, you know, this person that wants to identify as whatever. Prior to her transition, she reportedly sat on the board of the Seattle Non-Binary Collective and described herself as a tall, bearded, trans femme King County native. What is that? A person that would file a lawsuit because they can't use a Korean spa. That's how I look at that. These stories are going to keep happening, folks. And again, the ultimate victim of this is going to be women. You know, men are far less picky and far less intimidated, you know, but women kind of want their spaces, you know. They kind of want their different... they fought for these for years. Like, again, you know, I've talked about this, but the journey, if you just, you know, and not like I've done a deep dive, but if you just look at, like, the journey of, you know, what women have fought for and whatnot, you know, and certain women's rights groups and, you know, wanting, like, their own separate bathrooms and wanting, you know, to be looked at, you know, to be able to vote, for instance. I mean, if you kind of look at the journey of that, it's pretty fascinating, you know. And if you, like I said, you don't have to spend all day on it. If you just do like a 20-minute, you know, research dive into it, it's, you know, what you find is pretty fascinating. And, you know, just imagine, like, you go to a spa and you're just, you know, you're in the sauna and you're, you know, and like two people, you know, two men that are wearing wigs, you know, which is basically what's happening here, just walk in and say, well, we're female, and, you know, are in the sauna with you, and you have to look at that. You probably wouldn't feel safe. You might feel violated. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Because the courts say that's discriminatory. Doesn't matter what defense you use. A court has said you must operate this way, and you must not refuse business. These stories are going to keep happening, folks. And the only way that these stories stop happening is if women get really brave. I mean, I hate to put it on you, women, because, you know, you're probably tired. You're probably tired of fighting for things like this. You're tired, and I get it, okay? Maybe I don't get it because I'm a guy, but I understand the sentiment. Let me say that. But women are the ones that need to stand up and fight for this, and, you know, I'll do what I can to support. And I know you're tired. I know, you know, it's unfair. I know it is. But it's women that need to speak out about this. Because people will listen when women speak out. we'll go to this story. I was going to wait. I actually have a guest that I'm inviting, probably mid-July. Maybe we'll come back to this story then, too. But it's a guest that I want to introduce and talk about this kind of story. But we're going to talk about this because it'll kind of be older by then. Tennessee's first-in-the-nation law designed to place strict limits on drag shows is unconstitutional, a federal judge says. The law is both unconstitutionally vague and substantially overbroad and encourage discriminatory enforcement, according to the ruling late Friday by U.S. District Judge Thomas Parker, who was appointed by former President Donald Trump. There is no question that obscenity is not protected by the First Amendment, but there is a difference between material that is obscene in the vernacular and material that is obscene under the law, Parker said. Simply put, no majority of the Supreme Court has held that sexually explicit, but not obscene speech receives less protection than political, artistic, or scientific speech, he said. The law would have banned adult cabaret performances from public property or anywhere minors might be present. Performers who broke the law risked being charged with a misdemeanor or felony for a repeat offense. Parker used the example of a female performer wearing an Elvis Presley costume and mimicking the iconic musician who could be at risk of punishment under the drag law because they would be considered a male impersonator. Friends of George's, a Memphis-based alphabet soup theater company, filed a complaint in March saying the law would negatively impact them because they produce drag-centric performances, comedy sketches, and plays with no age restrictions. This win represents a triumph over hate, the theater company said in a statement Saturday, adding that the ruling affirmed their First Amendment right as artists. Similar to the countless battles the alphabet soup community has faced over the last several decades, our collective success relies upon everyone speaking out and taking a stand against bigotry, the group said. Don't they all sound the same? Like, they all sound the same. All of them. Like, they just have this script that they just use, and they just throw out buzzwords. Bigotry, hate, whatever. Like, it's always the same. It's always the same. Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson, a Republican who was one of the law's main sponsors, said he was disappointed with the ruling. Sadly, this ruling is a victory for those who support exposing children to sexual entertainment, Johnson said, adding that he hoped the state's attorney general will appeal the perplexing ruling. Initially, the complaint listed Republican Governor Bill Lee, Attorney General Jonathan Scrimetti, and Shelby County District Attorney General Stephen Mulroy as defendants, but the plaintiffs later agreed to dismiss the governor and top legal chief, although Scrimetti continued to represent Mulroy for this case. The spokesperson for both Scrimetti and Mulroy did not immediately... Okay. So we've covered these 4 stories. The thing is, what you have to realize with this stuff is that, there has been actually a concentrated effort at this point of people trying to turn the tide around, because this is, when we talk about, letting men into women's sports and letting men into women's spas and, all that, you're just reversing, again, what women have fought for years. And, again, if you don't agree with what women have fought for, then you should just say that. The people that are fighting this are also the people that talk about, women's rights and women, not being erased and all this other stuff. It's the same people that always fight this battle. And so this kind of proves that they're not on your side. What they're on the side of is they're on the side of trying to win. Right? They're on the side of, we want to silence our opponents. So as we saw, for instance, with the Twitch streamer, we see that, they just kind of say, oh, well, we're going to celebrate pride in capital letters, and we're just going to eliminate his, skin off the game. Right? We're just going to do that because we just want to erase him. We just don't want to be associated with him because we're not associated with hate, right? The Korean spa, you know, they're trying to say you can't do the spa the way you want to do it because it would be discriminatory. You know, the school district, you know, eliminated the Bible, which again, that's, you know, I can get the discussion and I understand why, but you know, this just kind of, these stories represent why Republicans and other conservatives need to stop trying to rely upon laws and legislatures. You cannot have that as your savior, folks. You can't do it. You need to be more strategic than that. You need to stop with the, you know, with the strategy of trying to just legislate things away. Because when you do that, all you do is you create a equal but opposite, or and sometimes even greater than equal, reaction. You do not eliminate the desire, you eliminate the permission. And people will just go around and overrule you, and you have now brought about your own demise because they're just going to continue to attack you and try to steamroll you. But if you change the culture, again, if you bring back, you know, and this goes back just to the original, like, if you bring back, like, families are great. You know, the nuclear family is a great institution. If you know, bring back the fact that, you know, maybe not everyone should go to college, especially those that are not gifted, you know, in a lot of the different areas that college would teach, right? And you bring back, like, you know, there are some people that are going to be more mechanically inclined that aren't going to need to know about, you know, the different majors in college. Once you bring these back and you have culture aligning with the values that you claim to have, then what will you have? You will have a culture that doesn't want to go get abortions, that doesn't want to become single mothers and fathers, that doesn't want to engage in, you know, will actually recognize, like, you know, maybe children are, again, stupid and kind of need to be protected from explicit material. Like, you'll have that. You know, I just kind of point to, I mean, if you look at, like, all the prominent, you know, Democrats that these people will, you know, rush to the polls and vote for, well, like, do you again, we talk about Hillary Clinton, we talk about Joe Biden, we talk about, you know, Obama, you know, and how, they're LGBTQIA, LMNOP champions, but yet, where were they in 2008? You know, 15 years ago. That's not that long in terms of politics. You know, especially when you have to be at least 90 years old to run for president, apparently. But, you know, that's not that long in terms of politics. Where were they in 2008? They certainly weren't supporting this. And, you know, this would be unheard of back then. And it's only been 15 years. And now it's become to the point where, you know, you have to pass laws, basically, that say, you know, like, laws that say you can't really, you know, have, like, sex and gender ideologies, you know, taught to, like, 8 and 9-year-olds are controversial. It's because of the culture. It's because of the culture. You know, and I've said this before. You know, I'm gay, and my thing was I wanted to just be left alone, you know, back in, like, 2003. Like, I remember the, you know, the time back then when what it was the commercials were like, you know, your next door neighbor might be gay, and they just want to be left alone. They just want to, you know, that was the law, or, you know, the thing back then. And now it's like, well, just have your kids, you know, we're gonna mandate that your kids know certain, you know, sex things because there are truancy laws, right? So if you don't, you know, the default is sending your kid to public school. If you don't send your kid to public school, you know, well, guess what? Doesn't matter. So, no. The thing is it takes generations to stop Mog. It takes a generation. Not, you know, I don't say that overnight it gets solved, but when you have the discipline and the family, you know, the family back in the picture, instead of, you know, mom saying or dad saying, you know, oh, well, you know, Sally said she's a boy, so, you know, we're gonna start buying boys' clothes and we're gonna start, you know, doing everything. Like, instead it's just kind of like, no, you're not, come on. And the kid grows out of it, and that's usually what happens. But instead, they cater to it. And in some cases, it's considered child abuse if you don't cater to it. Like, there are actual stories of it being, you know, considered child abuse if you don't cater to this. There are schools that, you know, are saying, do you really feel like a boy? Do you really feel like a girl? You know, like, there are schools that ask this, like, every week. And so, again, you don't solve that by saying you can't ask the kids that, because they'll just ask it a different way, or they'll just ask it in, you know, they'll just imply it differently, right? You have to take a step back and change the big picture, and it takes generations. It doesn't take, you know, I mean, this what I would call social rot didn't happen overnight. I mean, this has been a very slow thing that's happening, and it's going to take time to rebuild it and change it. And you know, unfortunately, things like Twitter and TikTok babysit kids these days, right? And so, if you're not raising your kids, they will. I promise you. They will. Alright, anyway. That's my rant about that. You guys know my... Apple will automatically blur your nudes in iOS 17. Wait, where is this? Oh. There's no story here. I guess that's just it. Or it lost the story. Oh, there you go. Oh, Platinum, you're right. That's gonna be something. Well, there you go. That's all. I guess that's all I have to say about that. Alright, let's talk about drugs. Talk about drugs. The rise of the popular Ozempic and Wegovy force weight loss companies to upend their approaches. The rise of the popular obesity and diabetes drugs Wegovy and Ozempic have compelled weight loss companies to fundamentally shift their business models. Weight Watchers and Noom have for years promoted diet and exercise as the primary ways to lose weight, but both recently debuted plans to offer prescriptions for Wegovy and similar drugs as part of a strategy that recognizes obesity as a chronic disease. Weight Watchers announced the change in March when it purchased Sequence, a telehealth company that offers prescriptions for obesity drugs. In the coming months, Weight Watchers said it would roll out a program for members taking the medications. The subscription app Noom, meanwhile, launched its own telemedicine platform last month called NoomMed, which provides access to the drugs. Noom, founded in 2008, offers psychological tips to assist with weight loss and helps people track their eating and exercise habits. The company said their decisions to expand into prescription medications came in response to an evolving scientific understanding of obesity, as well as to requests from customers looking to incorporate medications into their weight loss regimens. We have always followed the science. I'll follow the science. I love that phrase. Love that phrase. And as the medical community has transitioned into this concept of obesity as a disease, we would be remiss in not joining as well. Said Dr. Linda Anagawa, Noom's chief of medicine. Dr. Gary Foster, chief scientific officer at Weight Watchers, similarly said that offering medication was a natural next step for the company. Okay. So, this is not to say like anybody that, uses drugs for weight loss or has them, that's all bad. It is kind of a symptom, I would say, of, kind of a fast food society where we want, certain drugs to be incorporated. We want to be able to, use a drug. Because if we kind of look, what this does is that, both drugs are brand names for semaglutide. There's semaglutide, a medication that can lower blood sugar and suppress appetite by mimicking a hormone that signals to the brain when a person is full. Semaglutide cut body weight by an average of 15% in trials. So basically what it does is it introduces what's like an outside discipline measure. So if you don't have the discipline, to follow a very strict schedule and a very strict diet, along with exercise, what this does is it kind of introduces a faux discipline, right? Well, now your brain won't be, wanting food. It's gonna, have this hormone that signals to the brain when a person, I don't know how I feel about that. Like I get it, like it can help people with diet and maybe, regulate, but again, it doesn't really help with discipline, which is going to be the core of, losing weight and whatnot, right? That is the core in general, is you have to be disciplined to change your diet. It takes a lot. It takes a whole lifestyle change. Again, this is not to criticize anybody that uses these drugs. I mean, if you have to do what you have to do, but what I would say is that there's probably another issue. If you find yourself relying on this, there's probably another issue, because if you were to stop taking this medication, then what, right? Like, are you just gonna eat again, like, until you is it gonna be something like, where you cut your diet and you do it for 6 weeks and then all of a sudden you go back and you want more than you initially had? Like, is that going to be what it is? And there's also, like, there are some structured diets that, are there to introduce discipline and to introduce knowledge. And one of the weaknesses is, like, with a structured diet is obviously, when you come off of that structured diet, you know, there's a lot of people that kind of just go right back to what they were doing rather than saying, okay, like I can have a little bit more, but I can't have, you know, as much as I did. Whereas they kind of just go back to what they were doing before, right? They're just like, you know, that structured diet didn't give you the lifelong discipline. So again, I get it. I get why they're using it, and I guess it's just kind of another type of, you know, a diet, you know, supplement, and, you know, a type of introduction of that. I don't know. It just, I don't know how I feel about it, especially with medication. It just seems like another way for, you know, drug companies to get rich in a way. You know, that's what it seems like to me. So anyway, that's about what I can say. Yeah, they're contradicting. Are you saying they shouldn't because they're not doctors, or are you saying it should be of itself? Because a lot of people aren't going to go to a doctor. Like, you know, you're not going to go to a doctor to lose weight. And I think that's kind of like, you know, the doctor might tell you to lose weight, but they're not going to, you know, they're probably not going to prescribe like a weight loss medication unless you're like really out of control and it's really, you know, affecting your health. Whereas something like, you know, and I would say, you know, a lot of people that want to lose a little bit of weight, like, you know, for instance, like me, like, if, you know, wanting to lose a little bit of weight, like, they're probably not gonna, I'm not gonna go see a doctor in reference to, you know, can you prescribe me something, or talk to a doctor about weight loss. I'm probably just gonna go on a program. Now, I get what you're saying, and I have a little bit of a, you know, my libertarian brain tends to say, you know, drugs, you know, for the most part, people should be able to get what they want, right? And if they want access to that, then, you know, it shouldn't be behind some, like, you know, firewall, effectively, you know, which is why, you know, prescription drug companies, you know, part of the reason is they're so rich is because of the restriction of access to them, because, you know, they are able to artificially inflate, you know, a lot of their prices based on, you know, the restriction of access. But, you know, that being said, I get what you're saying. Like, people should, you know, they shouldn't rely on like a program to be, you know, to say, oh, well, this is you know, this is a supplement program that we have. You know, we're actually, you know, this is part of our premium class, whereas, you know, the you know, without medication, you know, it's only our basic plan. You know, like, that's probably what they're going to do with it. So I get it. Like, they're kind of like using it as a marketing tool, and I totally get what you're saying. But, you know, and should they be doing that? I just don't know how I feel about the drug in general. I mean, I guess, like I said, it helps people, and, you know, just unfortunately doesn't do what, you know, a weight loss program is supposed to do, which is to introduce discipline and to get you thinking about the foods in your diet and exercise and whatnot. You know, it's kind of that, you know, well, this is gonna, you know, it's gonna help you, and sure, it's gonna help you as long as you take it, but, you know, is it addictive? I don't know. It's the only article I've read on it, so it could be, it may not be, I don't know. But the second thing is that, you know, once you're off the medication, I imagine your appetite just comes right back. So, I don't know. It's kind of like Suboxone you know, for like heroin addicts, right? Like it makes their cravings like not, you know, because, you know, I guess heroin addicts, like their cravings are crazy. Like it's just you know, beyond anything that, you know, that we would know. And like they take Suboxone a lot of times to, you know, to curb those cravings. But, you know, Suboxone itself is like really, really addictive. And so that's kind of what it sounds like to me. I can't say that this drug is really addictive, but it's kind of like a heroin addict just starts taking Suboxone, right? I'm not comparing the two, like, as far as the problems that each has, because obviously, you know, being addicted to heroin is a much more dangerous proposition than being addicted, you know, or, you know, having a weight problem in most cases. You know, I mean, obviously you can be chubby, you can be obese and still be relatively healthy, whereas a heroin addict, you know, has a very real danger of overdosing at any time. So I'm not trying to compare those two situations. I'm comparing the type of discipline that this kind of feels like it introduces. That's what I'm trying to say. So okay. Let's talk about this. I love this story. I get like 50 emails a day and nothing helps for me, Mug. Oh, by the way, it's HelloFresh. There you go. Eviction filings are 50% higher than they were pre-pandemic in some cities as rents rise. Okay, you guys ready? Are you guys ready for the violin music? Okay? Are you guys ready? I want your violin music queued up for this story. Okay. Entering court using a walker, a doctor's note clutched in his hand, 70-year-old Dana Williams, who suffers serious heart problems, hypertension, and asthma, pleaded to delay eviction from his 2-bedroom apartment in Atlanta. Hey, Trey, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Trauma, or is it Trey or Traumayaz? I'm not sure. Welcome to the stream. Although sympathetic, the judge said state law required him to evict Williams and his 25-year-old daughter, May Williams, in April because they owed $8,348 in unpaid rent and fees on their $940 a month apartment. Man, can't you give him a break? Can't you give him a break? They have been living in limbo ever since. They moved into a dilapidated Atlanta hotel room with water dripping through the bathroom ceiling, broken furniture, and no refrigerator or microwave. But at $275 a week, it was all they could afford on Williams' $900 monthly Social Security check and the $800 his daughter gets bi-weekly from a state agency as her father's caretaker. I'm crying right now, guys. I'm crying. I really don't want to be here by the time his birthday comes in August, May Williams said. For his health, it's just not right. His birthday? What a tragedy! If he was in a hotel room for his birthday. By the way, maybe, I don't know, maybe report this hotel, like, if it's got, like, leaks in the ceiling. Just saying, like, you know, maybe, like... No? No, we're not gonna do it. Okay. And we do have, government agencies for that, even though I disagree with them. Like, we do have government agencies. Like, you could actually go and say, oh, look, this, like, moldy hotel room. Just saying. The Williams family is among millions of tenants from New York State to Las Vegas. From New York State to Las Vegas. I don't... Don't know why those two. New York to California. I guess it doesn't go into California. We kind of just stop at the Nevada border. Who have been evicted or face imminent eviction. After a lull during the pandemic, eviction filings by landlords have come roaring back, driven by rising rents and a long-running shortage of affordable housing. Most low-income tenants can no longer count on pandemic resources that had kept them housed, and many are finding it hard to recover because they haven't found steady work or their wages haven't kept pace with the rising cost of rent, food, and other necessities. Homelessness as a result is rising. Protections have ended, the federal moratorium is obviously over, and emergency rental assistance money has dried up in most places, said Daniel Grubbs-Donovan, a research specialist at Princeton University's Eviction Lab. Across the country, low-income renters are in an even worse situation than before the pandemic due to things like massive increases in rent during the pandemic, inflation, and other pandemic-era related financial difficulties. Eviction filings are more than 50% higher than the pre-pandemic average in some cities, according to the Eviction Lab, which tracks filings in nearly 36 cities and 10 states. Landlords file around 3.6 million eviction cases every year. Okay, guys. So to talk about this a little bit. First of all, they always editorialize the story. Now, somebody that's 70 years old, okay? I want to put this out there first. Somebody that's 70 years old, he's living in a 2-bedroom apartment. He's going to the courthouse to, when you go to the courthouse and you ask to delay evictions and you ask for a stay on evictions, you are somebody that is incredibly, in general, you are somebody that is very, very familiar with the system. Because a lot of these people that are in eviction court, they're familiar with it. So they know they ask for a continuance. They ask for, a delay. They ask for a certain time. And, they know that each time, a certain request is filed, it extends that clock a little bit, right? So somebody that is going to court over this. Now, here's the thing. He owes $8,000 on a $940 a month apartment, okay? Now, what is that? About 10, 11 months or so, right? Of non-payment of rent. And in that entire time, your landlord, especially on something like that, the landlord is going to want to take something rather than nothing. So, they mention in this story, it's the daughter and him that earn, they earn about the collective of $2,500 a month, right? So between Social Security and what she gets for, caretaking, that's about $2,500 a month. Now, my question would be, first of all, as Mog said, why is she not working, right? Why is she just a caretaker that, apparently... But my second question would be, what was this man doing before the pandemic? It's not like he was, 25 before the pandemic. And then, why is he so far behind in his rent, right? And first of all, the moratorium, what it did was, the moratorium didn't stop rent from piling up. It's just kind of like a traffic jam, right? You just couldn't evict. So you're still being charged every month. It's just you can't evict anybody. So I ask, in this case, like, they're talking about housing courts are again filling up and ensnaring the likes of 79-year-old Maria Jackson. Jackson worked for nearly 2 decades, building a loyal clientele as a massage therapist in Las Vegas, which has seen one of the country's biggest jumps in eviction filings. That evaporated during the pandemic-triggered shutdown in March 2020. Her business fell apart. She sold her car and applied for food stamps. She got behind. So this happened to a lot of businesses. Right? This happened to a lot of businesses, unfortunately. And this is why I was so against the lockdowns, because there were so many businesses that just went under, especially restaurants, massage parlors, things like that, that, relied on visiting and the travel industry and whatnot. And they just collapsed, right? And so in a thing like this, I totally get it. But, when we talk about the guy at the beginning of the article, I have to wonder, like, what was happening before the pandemic? Like, you're, 67 years old, right? You're in a 2-bedroom apartment. Like, what were you doing to pay the rent then? What's different? Like, $940, obviously it's rent and, it's a big deal, but it's not that high, right? Like, it's not so high that it's prohibitively expensive. It's a big expense, don't get me wrong, but it is, but it is not prohibitively high. So, if we kind of take into account what the rent was before, the pandemic, let's just say it was still $940 back then, right? Well, what were you doing then? Because not a lot has changed from 2020 to 2023. As far as, a rent at that level. And how were you paying for it before? My guess would be that this person is very, very intricate with the system and knows what they're doing. And you also have to remember that a lot of landlords are just not, they're not these, like, wealthy fat cats that sit on, that have, what is that from DuckTales? Was it Scrooge McDuck that has the gold coins that he jumps into? Like, they just have this, like, giant room filled with gold coins, and, they dive into it, and I don't know, like, the coins somehow turn into, like, water, and he's able to swim in them. Maybe I'm the old one for remembering that. I hope not. But the thing is like, that's not what most landlords are. I mean, like, my dad's a landlord. Like, he, has a second house. And, he has a second house that, that is actually the house that I was mostly raised in, and my sister was entirely raised in. And the thing is that sorry, lost what I was going to say there. The thing is like, a lot of landlords are just, people that are just trying to make do. And so this eviction moratorium, like, really hurt a lot of landlords. And it kind of contributed to the housing crisis, where, like, a lot of just rents, like, I was just having a conversation the other day. When I had left Tampa, they wanted to increase my rent by more than 30%. And, like, it obviously would have hurt me. I could have done it, but it obviously would have hurt me pretty bad, as far as income. But there were people that couldn't do that. You can't raise rent for a lot of people that are, struggling just to make rent. You want to raise it by 30%. That's a car payment. That is a, electric bill. That is, whatever. And a lot of people can't do that. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they heard there was an eviction moratorium, they're just like, well, ching ching, let the cash register ring. I don't care. I've got 3 evictions on my record already. You think now you can't, I can live here and you can't even kick me. You can't kick me out. So to say that, it's not, how should I say? To say that it is something that is not being taken advantage of, or that wasn't taken advantage of, is, pretty wild. The other thing, too, is, like, a lot of times one of the things the pandemic has really done is has shown that we can, work in a society, or, for a lot of positions, you have the freedom of being able to, effectively work from home, right? And so, for instance, this woman that, is making $800 every other week, taking care of, her grandfather or father, I think it was her father, actually, I'm sorry. Why can't, you take a job that makes, $20 an hour and, is a customer service job that you can pretty much entirely do from home. Now you can be home with him, you double your income, and you can talk to your landlord and say, we don't want to be evicted. Can we start making payments? Can we, maybe you can't afford to double up on your payments, but, hey, we can, pay an extra $200 every month until, because the thing is the landlord just wants their money. They just want, at the end of the day, they want a tenant that's going to pay, right? They don't want to have to chase people for their money, and they want to be able to, if they don't have someone in the apartment or whatever that's not making money, then they're, they know the long, drawn-out process that they have to go through. And a lot of, especially, if you deal with an individual, like, a lot of these people don't want to go through that process because it just, they know how painful it is. So, if you agree to that, then you're able to do that. These people do not want to do that. And so I do not feel bad, for this gentleman in the story. Like, Yahoo News wants me to feel bad for him. I just don't. Because, the evidence is right there. I mean, the evidence of you've got 2 people that are relying on government funds that are not going to, try to better themselves. Well, there's seeds that you sow, right? And finally, and I'll get to a couple questions on as well, but let's talk about this briefly. What the potential UPS strike could mean for your packages. A UPS strike was by 185,000 workers 25 years ago brought the logistics giant's operations to a standstill. The 15-day strike slashed package deliveries, overwhelmed the U.S. Postal Service and FedEx, and hurt businesses across the United States. Now more than 340,000 UPS workers, represented by the Teamsters Union, are threatening to strike over pay, hours, and working conditions if there is no agreement in contract talks between the company and the union. If a strike takes place, it would be the largest single employer strike in U.S. history. The work stoppage would also kick off as shoppers head into the back-to-school season and retailers prepare for the peak holiday stretch later in the year. How bad could it get? Logistics experts predict that a short UPS strike would not be as devastating as it was in '97 because things have changed in the intervening quarter century. There are more shipping alternatives, for example. However, if the strike lasts longer than a week, there will be some empty shelves, higher prices, and slower package deliveries for customers, they say. In a worst-case scenario, a longer-term UPS strike could cause major disruptions to the U.S. supply chain network. So, there is still a lot of stuff that UPS does, especially commercial-wise. A lot of companies utilize UPS. It's a little bit more expensive than FedEx generally. If you have tried to use other postal or other like carrier services to on a commercial level, like UPS is the premier. Like it's worth the extra money that you're gonna pay, even to like struggling businesses. Like I have worked in shipping, or adjacent to shipping for a long time, and let me tell you that FedEx is just, like, at least in my experience, they are very second rate. Let me just say that in my experience, I have not had a good experience with FedEx. USPS obviously, not much better. And when you actually use UPS on a consistent basis, like very few of your packages go missing. Extremely tight service as far as, getting things to customers and whatnot. So, UPS is kind of the standard. And, FedEx, I would more consider like a budget carrier. They're kind of like the Spirit Airlines compared to, one of the better airlines, I guess. But shippers have more options than they did in 97. FedEx and regional characters have grown. Okay. Walmart, Target, and other retailers have also built their own last mile delivery operations and offer customers the option to buy online. So yeah, I mean, like, they're right as far as, on a consumer level. And that's kind of what the story is getting at. Like I said, a lot of businesses, especially business to business, utilizes UPS. So that's where it's really going to affect it. And UPS delivers about a quarter of all U.S. packages to their final destination, according to Pitney Bowes, a global shipping and logistics firm. And there is not enough capacity in the market to replace UPS, and its share of shipments is even greater than that number indicates, since many of the packages being delivered by the U.S. Postal Service are moved by UPS. Overall, UPS handled 18.7 million domestic packages a day on average in the first 3 months of this year. Small, medium-sized businesses lower in the pecking order than big box chains would see the most delays from a lengthy strike. Yep, that would be true. Big retailers have contingency plans in place. The chief strategy officer at Third Logistic... Okay. Yeah. Logistics experts generally believe a prolonged strike with damaging implications to businesses and the economy will be averted. Both sides have too much to lose in a lengthy dispute. UPS CEO Carol Tome has been predicting a deal will be reached without a strike. We are aligned on several key issues, she said in April. While we expect to hear a great deal of noise during the negotiation, I remain confident that a win-win-win contract is very achievable, and the UPS and Teamsters will reach agreement by the end of July. Man, Teamsters is a name I haven't heard in a long time. The odds of a strike are as high as they have been since 97, but they're still less than 50%, said Alan Amling, a fellow at the University of Tennessee's Supply Chain Institute and a former UPS executive. Both UPS and Teamsters know that the volume that leaves them during a strike would be gone for good because there are alternatives. It's mutual destruction if that happens. Yeah, so, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know. This article doesn't really say precisely what problems there are. They're citing, pay, hours, and working conditions. Well, that's pretty vague. There's probably, an article out there that, specifically goes over, but I don't know exactly what that would be. Pay, hours, and working conditions. Yeah, so, I guess just keep an eye on it. Maybe I'll do some more research into it to see exactly what they're citing as a problem. We'll see how many, when, because they have a contract, so whenever the contract ends, that's going to be August 1st. So, it's still ways out. So we'll see if anything happens by August 1st. But yeah, I would have to do a little bit of a pay hours and working conditions. So I'd have to do a little bit of research on that and see exactly what they're saying is bad. Pay and hours are probably kind of self-explanatory, but we'd have to, from the drivers that deliver and pick up. No, it might be. Certainly could be. I don't know how you would make that better. Like, how you would make those conditions better. Maybe the trucks are in disrepair or something, and like climate control, like they don't pay attention to, or, the trucks tend to overheat and they have to constantly repair them. If that's the kind of stuff that they're talking about, then I would get it. But beyond that, it would be very difficult to know how to make those better, those conditions. All right, so let's talk a little bit about I wanted to go over some of the questions that we had, because I got some questions. By the way, I do really like the questions I've been getting. If you've submitted any in the past couple of days, I was on a free trial, so I just have to. I was utilizing their services. I'm gonna go ahead and purchase the services, but that's right. Go faster and you have more AC. Plus, I have a car that can just deliver everything in Miatas, right? That would be fine. Okay, so we have the next question here. We'll probably get to one, maybe two. What's your thoughts on the world aiding Ukraine? At the moment, they are receiving a lot of support from other nations from around the world. This is creating tension with Russia and other countries. Do you think this might lead to another world war? First of all, thank you for the question, whoever asked that. The second thing is that it's kind of already a world war. If we look at all the nations that are involved, you've got a lot of Europe that's, involved versus Russia. Middle East is, sending weapons to Russia. They were just talking about the Iranian drones that they saw that were, in the Ukraine. The United States is obviously sending a lot of aid. So, there are a lot of conditions that kind of replicate what we saw in World War II. So, for instance, like Japan, back in World War II, when they were attacking China, that's when the United States decided to kind of cut off aid, and that's what made Japan invade a lot of Burma and whatnot, is they were needing resources to continue to fuel their country, because they, Japan is not resource rich, I'll say. They don't have a lot of resources there, so they have to import a lot of fuel and especially that was a big thing back then. And so now we have kind of Russia that is kind of in the same boat, because they're not trading with the US and a lot of other countries. But the difference is that, Russia has a lot of countries that are going to trade with it. So, for instance, China, for instance, the Middle East. And there's a lot of resource-heavy, differences with that kind of thing. And so, being imminent, whether a world war would be imminent, I think that there are more factors that would definitely slow that down, as opposed to a World War II. but yeah, there's a lot of tension, obviously, and my thoughts on the world aiding Ukraine is you kind of see like what Zelensky is when he just kind of demands support, right? And what they always say is it's, important for democracy for the U.S. to win this war. I mean, we saw Caitlin Collins, when she was like grilling Trump on Ukraine, she was sitting there saying like, so you want Russia to win? Does that mean you want Ukraine to win, or do you want Russia to win? Like she was going at that angle, and again, I did like Trump's answer is like he wanted people to stop dying. Well, that is the correct answer. It's not about winning or losing. It's about ending the war and ending tensions. And so, my thoughts on the world aiding Ukraine, you have to ask yourself, is that what the ultimate solution would be? It's just to, aid Ukraine and just give them weapons and, support and money and all this other stuff. Is that what we want the solution to be? I don't think that's ultimately the correct solution. I think that there's a better solution in terms of negotiation and figure out exactly what both sides want. And I feel like people like Biden, just sit there and say Russia bad, Ukraine good. And, same with like Lindsey Graham, and same with, a lot of the other politicians that just, constantly, rubber stamp aid to Ukraine. So my thoughts are the solution that the world of just aiding Ukraine, is not correct, and that there needs to be a different approach. What are your views or concerns? This is the next question, by the way. What are your views or concerns on our borders being as open as they are right now? Well, country exists to have borders. When you don't have borders for countries, there is no country, effectively. So what we see is particularly the southern border, a lot of people, coming across, and you have to ask yourself, what is the reason that they're coming across? Well, they're coming from a lot of countries that are dangerous and situations that, they are living in that are, pretty bad conditions. You do not lightly make the decision when you don't have a vehicle, when you don't have, even a guarantee of reaching the border alive. And when you actually get to the border, you have to often risk your life in a way that is, to get across the border. You have to risk your life, whether it be, in the back of a truck, for instance, where you're sneaking across that way, or you are crossing through like rivers and plains, where there's like wild animals and a lot of dangerous, types of terrain, or whether you're just trying to get across and, ask for asylum and you're sitting in a lot of lines and big crowds. And again, those areas are not really safe, like the right at the southern border. Those areas in Mexico are not safe. So you are, it's a really dangerous journey. And so my answer to that would be, what is causing a lot of these people to do that, right? The answer is ultimately the conditions that they're living in right now. And so, a lot of people kind of want to do the lazy thing where you just kind of give them money, give them reparations. You say, oh, it's America's fault, that they're living in these conditions. And, I can't even say that's entirely wrong. But you don't just give aid and money and, whatever to a corrupt government that's going to continue to do the same thing. I mean, Kamala Harris went down there just to say, I have a message for you. She went to Nicaragua, I think. I have a message for you. Do not come. Like, if you're thinking about making that journey, do not come. And like she was like booed in the streets, and like, people were just like, like not there for, well, what, if these people are making this journey, what kind of conditions would make it so that they say, I want to take my entire family, put them in danger, right, to make this huge journey across the country? And so if we're going to talk about like humanitarian efforts and aiding those, it might be more beneficial to invest in, certain programs in these countries that would, assist bringing them up, right? Now, again, that's kind of a solution that I'm not, like, in love with. But because, it involves more government funds and it involves, more government programs and whatnot. But at the same time, just to, when Republicans sit there and say, oh, we just want to build a wall. And when Democrats say, oh, we just want to, put up we just kind of want to, grant amnesty and, these people are sad and, they are trying to come across. It's like neither of those solutions are really helpful. Hey, KJ. Yeah. Neither of those solutions are comprehensive. So you have to get to the core of the issue. And so why are they open? That's another story. I mean, I think there's a lot of politics there that kind of lend themselves to that, that they're not being, patrolled properly, that there's not a lot of support, on a state or federal level for that particular portion of the country. So, anyway, that would be it. I don't know what you're talking about, KJ, when you just come in and ask a question without any context. But yeah. Oh man, the next question, I would go with the next question, but that's going to probably be like a 25 minute explanation, so we're gonna have to get to that next time, but I'll just kind of give you a teaser. What is your opinion on the effect social media is making on U.S. politics? Has it had an overall positive or negative effect in your opinion? I think y'all know what I have to say about that. KJ, the definition of libertarianism is the voluntary exchange of goods and services. That's all it is. So we support small business. Well, we support business in general. And what we have today is we have a regulated marketplace of, where the government has its hands basically in almost everything that exists. So, when you say private tyranny, I would rather have a lot of business owners that are voluntarily exchanging goods and services with each other, and different people offering their services to businesses, than I would a government that dictates what you are to do and not do, and how you, they are the ones that are able to control the entire apparatus. And I know your argument is going to be, you need a neutral arbiter for, everything that you do, and you need the government to regulate because, the businesses are, able to go off on a tangent. They're able to, become, mega corporations that, control people and everything else. But really, it's just, what you're saying is that the answer to that is a central government that is able to control, rather than a lot of different businesses that are voluntarily exchanging, right? That's ultimately what you're suggesting, is that a government that is, already corrupt, that has ultimate control at the threat of gunpoint. For any law that they pass, they can always threaten at gunpoint or with, jail and servitude, which is essentially that. That is preferable to business owners who want your business and who can, tailor their products and services to what you want, as long as you can provide them with some kind of value yourself. So no, I don't believe that a central government is preferable to voluntary exchanging of goods and services. Anyway, guys, that's the show for today. I thank you so much for joining. I will be back next week. I think I'll be back next week. I actually am moving. I'm moving to Tampa again. So as long as I get set up, and that the plan is to get set up, by then I will be back. If not, I will definitely make an announcement in the Discord. But I should have enough. I should be able to stream next weekend, because that should be plenty of time. So I will see you all next weekend. It'll look a little different. My setup will look a little different because I won't be in this room anymore. I'll be in a different room. So you guys take care. Have a great week ahead, and I will see you all next time.